speak into our mics. I'm going to do a roll call. Nancy Olson.
Here.
Bob Geppert.
Here.
Ron DePonte.
Here.
Nancy Hall.
Here.
Okay. So we have a quorum. Jan and John are away, but we have sufficient people for a quorum, which is good. Approval of minutes. The June 8th minutes still have work to be done on them. In fact, I don't know whether Diane even included them in the package. I'm struggling with the minutes thing, getting them done. So we still have the June 8th minutes, and as a matter of fact, there's even a correction to the May 11th minutes that have to be done. So we're struggling with the minutes situation, getting them done through. They're now being done by Severn Trent, and it's a little bit of a struggle. But anyway, we go to the, so I'd like to go to the July 13th minutes, which you've had for a little time. Are there any corrections or additions? The June 6th minutes, which you have in your package, we already approved those at a prior meeting, I'm quite sure. But the July 13th minutes, any additions or corrections? I have.
There's some corrections on here.
Yeah, there's some corrections that are written in, so we would want to include those. I have another correction. The statement after number 16 that says none of the items 8 through 16 were discussed, that's not true. We did discuss them. However, the problem was we had a technical problem and it wasn't recorded. Our recording cut off after 37 minutes. And so the person writing the minutes didn't have them. So I'm gonna suggest that we change that to state the discussion of items 8 through 16 were not available due to technical problems, which is a more accurate statement. Saying we didn't discuss them is not true, unfortunately, somehow, and nobody's been able to explain it to me. We lost the minutes for everything up after the place where you may have have this. So the other two changes are putting Bob's name in for Ron's in items the second and fourth paragraph in number 6. Are there?
He's ready.
Oh, he's ready. Okay.
Yeah, he just called me. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the same number.
Okay. John is ready to join us.
Good.
Hello.
Hi, John.
Okay, I'm here.
We're discussing the July 13th minutes. Do you have any additions or corrections?
No.
Okay, if not, I will entertain a motion.
Well,
that-
no, one
Oh, I'm
quick
sorry,
thing.
Nancy has one.
Yeah, on item number 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the bottom, where I suggested the remainder of the 2017 funds be used for recurring items, that's fine.
Yeah.
But, and that the capital items come out of surplus, and that's fine. But I think, if I remember correctly, I also asked that for the increase in the budget, we had a discussion about whether to cap it at 2% or to
Yeah.
take it all, and I think I was the one that suggested we cap it at a 2% level.
Mhm.
And rather than have a zero,
Mhm.
a zero balance
Okay.
budget.
So, just add and suggest, and
That-
she suggested that.
That a cap of 2% increase
Mhm.
in the 2018 budget.
Okay. By the way, for the record, John Grega has just joined us on the telephone.
I need a vote so I can, from you guys.
Yes, yeah, we'll get to that in just a sec. Let us finish the minutes and we'll get to that.
Okay.
Budget be capped at 2%. Okay.
Budget increase, yeah, be capped.
Budget increase. Okay. Any other corrections, additions? If not, I will entertain a motion that the minutes be accepted as corrected.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Moved by Ron DePonte, seconded by Nancy Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It carries. Okay, now, I would entertain a motion to, allow John to vote.
So moved.
Now, Ron moves, Nancy
I'll second.
Bob seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
That carries.
Thank you.
5-0. Okay. Financials update. Nancy, are there any significant things you need to point out to us on the financials?
Just a couple on the profit and loss through June.
Mhm.
They have started tree trimming now, so we are above the annual budget there. I don't think that's a problem because I think a lot of it's done now, and so it'll catch up percentage-wise throughout the year. Street lighting is a little out of whack, but that's, I think because Cypress Grove ended up being a little pricier than we had originally planned, but nothing that's a real problem. Let me just pass these out real quick. So I want to talk about that. Oh, I think I passed my copy too. Sorry about that. Doesn't matter, no, they're all same. This is the balance sheet that Severn Trip provides every year.
Oh, yeah.
So you can see at the bottom of the front page, unassigned, we've got $3.6 million sitting there.
Mhm.
So financially, we're in pretty good shape. And then if you go to the very last
Just
page.
say, I'm sorry, I'm missing 3.6.
If you look down, see I highlighted it in yellow? It's just
Oh, yeah,
a-
okay.
Oh,
okay.
got it, got it.
That's how much, that's our cash sitting there after our fixed asset
Does
reserves.
that include any ponds money?
Yeah, that's.
It does.
That's
Okay,
all
do
of
we
our
know,
money.
do we know how much that is?
I do.
He does.
I keep a running total.
What's?
It'll be less than 3.4.
Jeez.
What is the approximate amount of the
Uh,
funds?
I guess I'm not ready to answer that today, and here's the problem.
Yeah.
I know what the budget is, I know what I went into the budget.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I stand with O2 funds versus depleting the bond fund. And that's one of the things I'm trying to
Well,
get
but-
reconciled right now.
Order of magnitude.
1.5 million.
1.5 million.
So we would still have approximately 1.5 to 2 million
Absolutely,
sitting there. Okay.
absolutely.
And for this current year, if you go all the way to the very back page, it shows you our year-to-date budget.
Yeah.
That's highlighted in yellow also. Year-to-date would be 888,000, and we're at 801,000 right now. So we're in good shape for this
Mhm.
year's budget right now, too. We've got approximately $87,000 in excess.
And you don't envision anything that would soak up those extra
I
funds?
can't think of anything that's going to soak up all of those extra funds.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything major
And
coming up.
when Jason's about to present to us, when we get to him, the street lighting stuff. So that's gonna be,
Oh, for the street, the
Yeah.
additional lights,
The-
you're gonna talk about them today?
yeah,
Okay.
That's just over 30.
just over 30, so that's not gonna break the bank.
No, it's not gonna break the bank, especially when you consider we have an additional $1.5 million to $2 million sitting in the prior year's surplus.
Can I
anyway.
ask a quick question?
Sure, absolutely,
Okay.
please do.
In previous emails that I think you have sent, and I think Nancy confirmed, I believe, you recommended moving some things from the 2018 budget to the 2017 budget.
Yeah.
Does that surplus of $80,000 take that into account already? Or
No.
there's- Okay,
No.
so anything we move would be part of that?
That would be coming
Part
out
of
of
that,
that.
part of
yes.
that surplus.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that surplus is year-to-date, so we'll have,
Right.
we.
A little bit more.
Well, yeah, a couple $100,000 a month more, I guess.
Well, our
September-
surplus.
well, that's-
New bills
no.
that come in.
Yeah, our
Well, that's
surplus.
yeah, okay, we've got 3 months.
Right, our
Yeah,
surplus
so-
for the year right now is right now at about 87,000, so even if we have a few things that go over,
But we
planned
have
budget.
about 87,000, if we
Surplus
wanted to
for the
move
year.
things over, we
Right.
could.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
So overall, for the current budget, we're in pretty good shape.
Mhm.
I don't think there's anything else year-to-date that was unusual. The one thing I wanted to bring up, and I had asked Jason about this in an email, we had a large utility bill this month that went back, do you know how many months that went back?
I believe they were installed January 4th.
January
From
4th.
the information I got from FPL.
Okay. In Pistoia and Prado, there were streetlights installed that we hadn't been billed for. So we kind of had a catch-up bill this month. That
Here
was
we go
about
again.
Yeah.
$5,000 to $6,000 above our normal.
But why would we be paying for that?
Well, that's my question, because I remember, and I don't remember who told us this, but several months ago at a meeting, somebody said that Prado and Pistoia, their streetlights were gonna be included in their HOA assessments. I don't remember who said that, but I just remember thinking that this is just crazy because they're gonna have a different assessment because of streetlights that are rated 2, and the others have a different assessment to the master because of
Yeah, none of that makes sense.
water, but I remember that being said, and I don't remember who
I
said
do
it.
remember that you, I believe, had indicated that where we had thought we were being billed extra for, I guess, Matarita One and a
Yes,
few other
right,
areas.
right.
That we were being underbilled in some
Because-
other areas, and
yeah.
that was almost a wash.
Yes, right. I think that was not a big problem.
This was
I think
about
the issue
Prado and
here,
Pistoia.
yeah, the issue here, Ron, is that, yeah, I don't think we should be paying that bill. That should be,
Right.
that WCI should be, or
Correct.
Lennar should be paying that bill.
Yeah.
But it is a budget issue,
It is a budget issue.
you know, because that's something that Nancy hadn't included. And so if we are going to have to be paying for those lights,
We need to, now, the budget that you have in front of you, when we get to that, I
Yes.
did include that, I adjusted for that.
oh, you did?
I
You
did.
did, so that
Yeah.
2018 budget includes that
It
extra
does
money?
include that extra
It
money.
does include it.
It's just, my question is whether it should include it or
Well-
not, whether we should be paying it.
Yeah.
Until we take over the neighborhood, why in the world will we pay?
Right.
We don't have
Yeah,
a
oh,
single
yeah.
home,
Oh,
we don't
I-
have a single home in.
Oh, I
Pistoia.
think we absolutely agree with that. The question is, when we take the neighborhood over, Nancy was thinking that she had heard that even when we take it over, we may not be responsible for it.
And I just,
As opposed to who? Who would be responsible? The individual HOAs, you think?
yes, that's what somebody said at
That
some
doesn't-
meeting I was at.
Because that's not happening today, right, Jason?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Yeah. But regardless, at this point in time, I don't think we should be paying it.
No, no.
I agree.
Yeah, they haven't been conveyed.
So the question is, should we, number one, take it out of the 2018 budget,
Yes.
or should we leave it?
Well,
Well,
it
Prado
seems to me-
will never be conveyed in 2018, so yeah, we should take it
Well,
out.
they're
of
pushing to,
2018.
they're
Well, that's
pushing to
2018.
pay.
It seems to
We
me.
haven't done anything.
Ron, we've got enough
Yeah.
slack in that budget that, you know, might make sense for us to put it in there.
For 2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the future question down the road is, we shouldn't treat those residents any differently than any other resident. And we ought
Absolutely
to
correct.
figure out what it takes for us to take it over.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually. But, and then the first question is, what do we do about the current bill?
Turn it
Current
back to
bill,
them.
send it
Yeah,
back
send
and
it
say
back
that
because-
WCI's gotta pay that bill.
Yeah,
Seems to me.
this is not our bill.
Thoughts on that,
So-
Jason?
Lennar.
I'm sorry?
Thoughts on that, why we would be responsible for those right now?
Jason, you wanna come up to the,
Because we had the same issue with Cypress Grove, where we thought we were paying it and then would get reimbursed down the road.
yeah.
And I don't know why we wanna go down that road again.
Oh, we
and not
don't.
know if
We
we're
don't
gonna
wanna
get
go back.
reimbursed.
I'm,
Yeah, and the argument that I've heard previously, I believe that came from WCI Lennar,
Yeah.
was that once they're installed, they're being used by the residents.
There's no residents in
There's no
Pistoia.
residents.
No, I'm
Okay.
telling you what.
Well, okay, they say it.
There's a lot of empty buildings there
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
not occupied by.
They're
That's-
using it
that-
more than we are.
yeah.
Just refuse to pay the bill. That's the
Lights
simplest
go
way
out,
to
they
do
go
it.
out.
Pardon?
Well-
Lights go out, they're out.
Yeah, that's right. If they're happy with that, we're okay
Well,
with
the
that.
issue with that is we'll have to get reimbursed because those bills aren't submitted automatically, they're on
Absolutely.
auto pay. That-
Absolutely.
Just to make you aware.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, But just because they say they're not gonna pay it and we do, doesn't mean we do.
No, I just
Oh,
wanted
oh,
you
I
to be
see,
aware.
we're gonna have to go back to them and get reimbursed.
Absolutely.
Well, wait, back to
Exactly.
FPL?
No.
Why can't we
Back
go,
to-
the
No,
bill comes from
I meant to
FPL, does it
Lennar.
not?
Because
Because they're-
Lennar, 'cause
Right.
The bill comes from whom?
From
FPL.
FPL.
But it's on auto pay.
I understand, so why don't we go back to FPL and say, you need to correct the bill by $5,000?
Absolutely.
Period.
And send it back to,
And then
The bill.
tell FPL, that bill needs to go to Lennar.
yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you, or?
Going forward, maybe I don't know how that would work with the ones that have already crossed, if they were gonna,
They can figure it out. They're a big company.
I mean, I can look into it.
Yeah, is it pretty clear that what part of it is for Prado versus
No.
other things?
Absolutely not.
Of course not.
Oh, it's
No,
not?
no.
Of course not.
But
No,
there just
it's-
aren't
it's
that
not,
many
because
people in
they've-
Prado.
I mean, they're pretty much all in one account, one GL code line that it now probably accounts for over 300 streetlights.
Mhm.
Old Pelican,
So,
Cypress
so
Grove,
how were
and
you, how
Prado.
were you able to identify how much was Prado and Pistoia?
On that particular incident, when we went back on this bill, yes, they told me, this is what FPL told me, there was 57, I believe, don't quote me on that number, 57 lights that were installed.
Okay, so FPL is in a position then to identify.
They know.
They know.
Yeah, I would
Yes.
think they would know exactly the location.
Tell them they shouldn't be billing them to us. They can-
Coming to the wrong account.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'm sure they took direction from Lennar, and someone in Lennar said, oh yeah, give that to the CDD.
yeah,
Could be.
and they could be,
And that was the total vetting.
Could be.
yeah,
Well, just like they had done with Cypress Grove, which we're still battling.
yeah.
Right, which we probably won't get reimbursed for.
But-
Yes,
But we were
it turned
being
out to be a lot
underbilled.
less than
Uh-huh.
we thought.
Yeah, it may be that it's in our favor, is that right?
Well, I don't think it's in our favor, but
But
I
it's
think
not, we're not talking a lot
That's
of money.
something that really.
We're not
falls
talking
short of-
a lot of money.
Okay, because at one time it looked like it was quite a,
Oh, yeah.
quite a bit.
Well, I think Castle told us that it turned out it was just one bill for, it wasn't a real big bill for Cypress Grove that we were talking about for those lights.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact figure, but no, it's not.
Yeah, it wasn't real big. I mean, we should still be reimbursed for it,
Yeah.
but as part of turnover, but whether we will or not, it's hard to even say how much it is,
Mhm.
because it's all lumped into that one
But
account.
apparently, if we asked FPL, they probably could tell us, sounds like.
They can at least tell us on these 57 lights.
Yeah.
It certainly seems that way from
Yeah.
when I was trying to find out
Yeah.
why we got this bill.
Well, because normally that bill is what, 5,000 to 6,000 a month, and this one came in at 11,000.
Yeah,
Because they were
basically,
going back.
the way it came out, like when I reworked the numbers, it increased $1,200?
Per month?
Mm-hmm.
Something like
Yeah,
that, yeah.
because we're looking at 5 months before
Yeah,
they
so-
come around
Yeah.
the billing.
Yeah, and it was about 6,000 additional
Okay.
for
So,
those 5 months.
1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's substantial.
Yeah,
Buy a lot of
Look at
dinners.
it a year,
yeah,
And it's gonna
exactly.
keep
Now,
mounting if we don't make a
I guess
point of
the
it.
question is, who would we ask to, or where would we trace to find out whether there is something to this?
We'll find out as soon as we stop to pay. Somebody will do the research.
Well, no,
You
whether
mean in
the,
the
H-
long run?
whether the HOAs are.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
Whether these.
That would be Tony to tell us by reviewing the docs.
If the bill was coming to Jason anyway.
That we're in the future now.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna
With
say,
HOA.
but FPL, the only place who would
Well,
know
are
to
they-
do it would be
No, no, no.
FPL.
Jason, are they selling in Prado? They are, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely,
Prado.
people
So-
living there
Oh,
now.
yeah.
So-
There's 40 or 50 homes over there with
Right,
people in them.
okay.
So it should, it
So
would
those-
be, it would be in their documents.
Well,
Wouldn't it?
but, yeah, it should be, but Castle is the management, the HOA manager
Yeah.
for them, so they
Yeah.
should know, you guys should know what
What their documents say.
their documents say.
Yeah, could you check their documents to find out whether their documents say anything about them paying for the lights? That would be the determinant.
In a sense, the P-PAC is in the future, we may want to turn that around.
I agree.
First, we'll understand what it is.
We want to understand what it is.
Let's see what it is, and then we'll
Yeah.
see where we go.
Yeah. For the record, by the way, person taking the minutes here, Allison, you've been hearing from Jason Olson, if you have a voice that you
Of
don't
Castle Group.
understand. From Castle. John, are you hearing Jason?
Not well. I'm
Not well.
just hearing parts. I'm not getting a full sentence when he talks.
Okay.
Is he talking into the mic?
He is now, John.
Can you hear him now? Okay. Are you hearing the rest of us?
Yes, very well.
Okay, yeah. We asked people to use the mic. Okay, Jason, thank you.
Okay, so just to make
Yeah.
sure I'm clear, you want the bills going forward taken off of auto pay and sent to Lennar for Prado and Pistoia?
Yeah, or just.
Just for Prado?
Or the HOA, if
Both.
it's supposed to be the HOA.
And then we're checking the documents to see,
Well, yeah,
Or
the
the-
first you want to tell FBL to credit us for Prado and Pistoia.
Correct. Anything we've been billed to date,
they should credit us for, and they should, and if they wanna know, they should be billing it to Lennar. And then the second thing is, we wanna check the documents to see whether they say anything about both or either of those communities picking up their own streetlights.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Nancy, anything further on the financials?
I don't think so. We're just-
Okay. Any questions of Nancy? Okay, well, we'll move on to the
To the budget?
fun game, the budget.
Okay. I made all the changes that you guys had talked about previously. I took off the streetlights because we're gonna move them into this year. I took off the money for bridge repair, because we're gonna probably look at that as a capital item, I understand, if we're responsible for it. Losing my voice for some reason. And then I adjusted the electric for the new. So right now, that is in the budget.
I think we leave it there.
And I,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the ERUs, I used the new figure from Stephen, the slightly increased figure for this year.
Mhm.
So the question now is,
Yeah,
are we gonna leave an increase in here, or
Yeah,
are we gonna
well,
limit it?
I think for that discussion, if we could go to the document that I sent out to everybody, which includes, because that's really the consideration, is what's the total budget? And although the HOA agreement is a significant part, it's not even quite half of the total budget. And so we need to look at the total budget, which is the thing that really will determine the assessment per EAU, per RE. And by the way, that 3,097.25, just dividing by that number doesn't give you the number. There's some kind of magic, because some of the ERUs have to do with the golf course, and they get a different allocation. And even if you take all of that into account, I still can't figure out how they quite get the per ERU number.
No, I
that's-
can't either. I
Stephen
just take what he gives me.
Yes, exactly.
I gave up on it years ago. I
Oh,
used to
yeah.
try and do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I tried multiplying it all out to see whether it came up to the number, and it didn't, so I just gave it up, but it's close. It's very close.
Yeah.
So, it seems to me, we're in a position where, if you look at the thing I gave you, the first three, administrative services, operational administrative services, and operating expenses, there's nothing we can do about those. Those are effectively our allocation from the CDD. And they, two of them, the second and third one, the operational administration and the operating expenses, changed just very slightly from the last time that I sent you a document that looked like this, but the changes were minuscule. And that resulted from
It wasn't a tear.
changes that were made to the CDD 001 budget.
I'm pedaling as fast as I can, Phil. I can't find
Okay.
it. Got it.
You got it?
Thank you.
So, then we've got the waterway management services, and I think, Bob, that's money we need to spend.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Taking into account, we're going to be getting
Mhm.
Cypress Grove neighborhoods.
Right. HOA agreement, it appears that we've put in what we want to put in, we've made the adjustments we want to put in. So, the number that we can vary is the reserve for capital program. Because it seems to me that, that's what Stephen will use to get us to where we want to go. And that reserve, the amount we're contributing to that reserve is somewhat arbitrary at this point till we really finish our capital reserve study. At which time, we'll need to make a determination of what we really need, and if we need more than we've got in this budget, it would seem to me we could take it out of the prior year surplus.
Quick question?
Sure.
I'm trying to reconcile the 363,000 I see on the 2018 budget that Nancy gave us,
Yeah.
and the 437,000.
The 437, as I said, is a balancing number.
Okay.
Nancy is using the 363, which was what we originally
Right.
talked about. But right now, the 2,430,091 is the thing that gives us the current assessments. You know, if you looked at your tax bill, the tax bill, which were those increases of approximately 6 to 8%,
Right.
depending upon where you were.
So-
$63.53 per resident.
If, as an
Yeah.
example, I'm not
Right.
saying we're gonna do this.
Yes.
We're gonna take the $184,000 quote shortfall or
Yes.
tax increase.
Yep.
And made that a zero.
A zero, right.
That would mean that what he would do would take the reserve capital program and reduce
Which
it
is
by
by
the
$184,000.
$184,000.
That's exactly how it
Okay.
would work.
Okay.
Now, in deciding exactly what number we want, I think we want to control the number on a per ERU basis. So, and Stephen can make that adjustment for us. So now, I think we need to, we had some discussion of this the last time as to whether we want to go for a zero increase, or as Nancy suggested, a 2% increase. I would be interested in thoughts on that subject.
What was our increase last year, do you know?
Zero.
Zero. We were
Yeah,
flat.
we had nothing last year, right?
We were flat last year. We were flat.
And the reason that I said 2% was picking a number, but everything is going up considerably. And there will be a point where we can't zero everything out.
Right.
And there'll be a catch-up time period, and if we don't start accreting some amount of increase, it's gonna be problematic down the road, because overall budget categories increased generally, things we had control of, 3 to 4%, plus the district increased our allocation because of the new building, they've increased it because of personnel,
Yeah.
and those things aren't gonna go away, those things are gonna continue, and then we layer on top of that the preserves, which will be added in, and we'll layer on top of that, the additional annual increases, that at some point,
In all the new ponds.
We
And
don't
the
want to
ponds,
be in
it'll ca-
Gateway's position where they're looking at an 18% increase.
right, where it'll, at some point that'll catch up to us. So I think if we have a minimal increase, that, given all the increases that the district has had for us, plus our own more than 2% increases, I think we can use some of that money to offset it, but I don't think we can, we should use it all. I think we need to start getting people to think that
Yeah.
there's an increase, so that down the road, there's not a gigunda increase.
Ron,
So let me-
you have a
let me-
different opinion
let
on
me-
that.
And I respect your comments, and not disputing the fact that the bills are going up and will go up with the new portions of the community coming into our area of responsibility. But let me just, from what we gather so far, we have in the neighborhood of $1.5 million in surplus. That's not a trivial amount.
No.
Okay? Based on and Nancy, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, if I just take the $363,000 that we have been allocating to reserves, and take the difference between that and the 437, that already gives us a $74,000 number that we can reduce to 184 by. Okay, and that gives us the reserves of exactly what we had last year. Okay, so if you do that, that means the increase would be $110,000, if I'm looking at that right.
That's right.
Nancy indicated that we're gonna have about an $80,000 surplus this year,
This year.
okay?
But
Well,
that's
go
going to be
ahead.
reduced by the additional spending for the new LED lights,
Right, which is what, 30,000?
30,000 or so.
Okay, so that's 50,000. So if I take another, again, just for that one item, take another 50,000 off, that leaves a $60,000 increase. That's a lot less than your 2%. That's what I'm getting at. Your 2% would bring it up to almost 400, right? 2% of 2.4 million.
No.
How much is 2% of 2.4
2%
million?
of 2245 is what you.
Yeah, if you look at 2% of last year's budget.
Last year's budget.
All right, and what's 2% of 2.245?
Would be
About $44,000.
44,000, almost 45,000.
Almost 45,000.
45,000, and that brings it to that number, almost.
Mhm.
That brings it almost to that number, okay? Without allocating any of that $1.6 million surplus that we've got
Yes.
sitting there.
Mhm.
Okay, so if, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're investing that money at about 1%,
Not much more than that, I mean,
right?
yeah.
So 1% of 1.6 million is another $16,000
Mhm.
of interest, okay? It just seems to me, the numbers are small enough that you can argue either way. 45,000, I don't know what that equates per ERU, but it isn't a lot. But it just seems to me, if we got 1.6 million sitting there, reducing it by $40,000 or $50,000 to make it zero, doesn't make any real difference.
Well, I guess, Ron, where I'm coming from
Yeah.
is, we are so close, I think, to knowing where the reserve study's gonna go and how much we really should have, that out of that 1.6, we learned at one of the recent meetings that all of the bridges and repair work are our responsibility.
Well,
And that could be,
That's unsettled at the moment.
no, I think it's been settled, and it's gonna be about 300,000 of that will be what we'll have to spend. And then with your reserve study coming in, it may be that the decision is to move more of those reserve funds, more to the reserve funds out of that quote surplus, and there won't, rather than taxing people down the road to increase the reserve.
So if I'm hearing you, and forgive me for making this comment, so you would rather pay more in taxes this year than next year? I'd rather pay more taxes
No.
next year than this year.
No,
What's what you're implying? You're gonna increase taxes by about 2% this year. And I'm recommending it be zero. And you're saying you want to increase it this year so you keep the tax increase for next year lower.
no, I think next year, in addition to the increases we've had this year are still gonna be there, okay? And we've only accounted for them by taking it out of the reserves. So this year's increases are still there, plus you layer on top of that the 2 or 3 or 4% increase that we're gonna have in the various areas. So what there is there's creep in that. So I see two reasons actually three. I think there needs to be some general increase, some small increase. But in order to try to keep a little bit pace of what's going on, so that when we run out of the ability to take surplus funds and account for it, that it doesn't all hit us with this giant increase like Gateway has of the 18% or whatever it is.
Forgive me, but please don't compare us to the rest of Gateway. We're not going to have a $15 million shortfall, okay, after the reserve study is done and after we
All right.
gain the rest of
Yeah.
Pelican,
Mhm.
okay?
Well,
Don't compare that
All
to
right,
that.
Ron, that's not
Okay?
what I'm
'Cause
saying.
you're talking 1.6 million versus 15 million, that's an unfair comparison.
That's not what I
You're
intended to
implying-
say.
I'm sorry, you're implying.
What I'm saying is that we start off with an overall increase this year of whatever percent it is, 6%, and we're gonna take away that 6% and make that flat. And then next year, that 6% of an increase is still gonna be there, but it's gonna have increased more because we will be adding more of an increase to all the accounts. So instead of being the 6%, it will be 6 plus something percent. And at some point, we're not gonna have the surplus to bring it back, and we don't know what your reserve study's gonna show. And that would be the easiest way to swing that money into the reserve rather than taxing people down the road for that reserve.
Bob?
I've listened to both positions, they both have merit. My own nickel's worth, and I'm usually a pretty cheap guy. I think the 2% increase is modest, it doesn't actually reflect what the costs are, but it still is modest. So I would totally support that, so that we wouldn't have to go to future year to 4 or 6 or 8. I think that our surplus, in my own humble opinion, is an illusion. Although the dollars are there, based on the original reserve study we did, we greatly underfunded it.
Yes.
So, that money's there. And then the other looming thing from the pond's perspective is, I believe we have enough money right now to do Old Pelican for the downspouts. We're getting close. I'm close to $500,000, and we haven't spent it all. We got another 400,000 or so. We shouldn't have to do anything in Prado and Pistola. But in that Cypress Grove bundle of homes, it's gonna be a multi-million-dollar project. And it's to the community's benefit to do it. And if we have, quote, excess or surplus money, and I'm not sure that we will, I hear where we are right now, every bit of that could be eaten up out there, every bit of it. So that's my nickel's worth right now.
Nancy?
Well, I agree with Nancy that we need some small increase, and my reasoning is primarily, I don't know that that money is really there once the capital study is done. I have no way of knowing if we're underfunded in the capital study or not, and we won't know till we get it, but my guess is that we are probably.
We're gonna be shocked.
underfunded in it, yeah.
See, one can make the argument that our actual increases, and I'm in the same camp with Nancy and Bob, that our actual increase is 6%. And so by taking it to 2, we're toning it back. And at the same time, I'm concerned about not only the capital study, but the ponds and the bridges and sidewalks and all the other stuff that we've got. And I agree. I think that, and by the way, and I think after whatever we do, we probably ought to be sending a letter to everybody in Pelican Reserve explaining what happened here and why the costs either are flat or have gone up and what
Yep.
our expenses are doing.
Mhm.
I think it's incumbent upon us to do that, particularly if we raise the rates to any degree at all. So I would be in the same camp as to raise them 2%.
All right, let me make one comment.
Sure.
I sort of agree with Ron.
Yep.
And part of that is because looking at the reserve study and, yes, the bridges are a concern. But other than ponds, Phil, sidewalks, that's not an issue. The roads, talking to Tetra Tech, and I have, that's not going to be a big issue for reserves. You really think about it, there aren't that many heavy reserve concerns.
Okay.
But John, we didn't start them. We didn't start a reserve until about 12 years into the
No, but
community.
I agree, but.
So we were
I mean,
12 years behind the 8 ball.
I was just gonna say, if we have to do a catch-up on the reserves, it could be
I
a
don't
pretty
think
big
we will.
number.
I mean, I know the ponds are gonna have an issue, I know the bridges were an issue, but just look at our assets at Pelican Preserve. Roads are not gonna be a big issue.
Well, maybe not in our lifetimes,
Sidewalks
but it's
are
going
not
to be
gonna
an
be a
issue.
big issue.
Yeah. Well,
Neither are the buildings.
the building,
It's only one.
There's one building.
the gatehouse.
Maybe the town center later
No,
on.
that's
No.
That's different.
That's
not
separate.
gonna- That's not gonna be in here.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Basically
You
roads and
know,
sidewalks.
the thing is, it seems to me that a modest increase this year would be okay. Next year, once the capital study is done, we'll have a much better handle on where we can go. And if it turns out that, we've got plenty for capital reserves, then at that point, we can adjust for that.
We've had 12 years that were hurricane-free. If a hurricane comes through here and knocks down 150, 200, whatever number of palm trees and all, we got to put them all back up.
Mhm.
That's going to take a pretty good chunk out of our, and I'm not predicting that, but I'm just saying. Okay, I've said my piece.
And-
We can talk this forever. but-
Yeah, we can.
We can take a vote.
Yeah, I think it's time to take a vote. So
Take
do
your
I.
motion.
Can I make a suggestion
Sure. Yeah.
for the vote? We make it 2 separate votes. One for the budget itself, the 1.2 million that we get to vote on.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the HOA?
The
agreement-
HOA portion.
agreement budget?
And a second as to the allocation from the reserve capital program
Mhm.
to offset that.
Okay.
Make it 2 separate votes.
That's-
Sure.
That's
That's
fine, I
okay
have no
with you
problem.
guys?
You want to make a motion?
Make it.
Well, motion number one is to approve the existing total FY 2018 budget as presented by Nancy of 1.226848 million.
Okay, do we have a second to that?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, okay, so everybody's
Now
in
we've got to
favor.
work out
That's
the exact numbers
6
here.
to naught. Well, no, I
Or you
don't
want-
think,
go ahead.
I don't think you
What
do
is
have.
2% versus 0?
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, go
Right.
ahead,
It-
go ahead.
The question is, and we won't put the exact numbers, we will add, now, there's a little bit of a complication here, and that is that a 2% per EAU increase, as I pointed out, I think in one note I sent to you, is different depending upon where you live. And so I guess, you know, one of the questions would be, do we want to make it 2% for which set of homes? You know, we've got the single family and multifamily
Well,
category.
Not to exceed 2%,
Well,
regardless of category. Wouldn't that?
oh, no, but the problem is that we have to, the amount in dollars that everybody gets has to be uniform among categories. In other words, everybody gets the same dollar amount, but that dollar amount
Will be variable.
will be variable in terms of percent.
So
That's-
let's
that's
just go it
the-
on a dollar amount then,
Huh?
1930? The $19.30 assessment, that seems to cut across all categories.
When you say 19,
Under the assessment increase,
yeah.
1930 is that the 2% target?
Well, I think the
Pretty close.
2%, no, the 2% target would be, the fiscal year total per EAU was $942.66. And where you
For
getting-
17.
Huh?
Where-
Yes.
For 17.
Yes,
Where-
that's
where are those
correct,
numbers?
yes, and
I'm sorry.
that would be and so the number.
And for
would be-
18, it's 961.96.
That's right,
You're
which
looking at
is,
a different piece of paper.
yeah.
Yeah, this is in our package.
I gotta find that one.
Okay, then I'll tell you what. I'll make a motion that we accept the increased rates in the comparison of 2017 versus 18 assessments as in our minutes. And it happens to come to 1930.
Well, I think maybe
Per category.
if I might suggest, that we want a per EAU increase of $19 and,
30 cents
huh?
and 30 cents.
And 30 cents.
I thought that's what I said, but okay,
Did
you
you?
said it better.
Different word.
You said it better.
Okay.
That's
So
the motion.
That's Bob's motion. Do I have a second?
Is that, and that works out to the 2%
That-
roughly?
that-
Pretty much, yeah.
that were- Now, it won't be 2% for
No,
everybody.
but it's ballpark.
But it's
Some are lower, some are higher.
Some are lower,
Yeah.
some are slightly higher, but.
Then there's a second.
Huh?
I second.
Nancy seconds it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4 are in favor, opposed?
Nay.
John? Okay, 4 to 2, the motion passes.
Okay.
So Nancy, I think you need to request Stephen to make the number
Make
come
the
out.
number come out.
Make them work.
Yeah, right.
Make it come out
Make it
at
come out.
$19.30
So,
per EAU by adjusting the capital reserve as
Okay.
necessary.
so basically, the HOA line
Stays the
will
same.
be what it shows
Yeah,
in this
everything
budget.
on that sheet will
And
stay.
he can make whatever computations he needs to make it come out to 1930.
$19.30.
Okay.
Okay, everybody will get a approximately 2 to 3% increase depending upon where they are. Okay, any further discussions of the budget? And Nancy, I think Stephen indicated to me that we need to get to him.
I'll get it to him
ASAP.
tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll send it out to you guys first, and then I'll send it to him. Well, actually, this is the budget, so I guess I don't need to send it.
Yeah,
to him.
and in
No,
fact,
just
he
send
asked
it
that
to
we
him.
get it to him maybe even today if we
Okay.
possibly can.
It'll be late today, but
Yeah.
I can do it today.
All right. Okay. We are ready to move on to other items on the agenda.
Association manager report and Securitas.
Yep, okay. So, Jason, you want to come up and,
Jason Olson, Castle Group. The only item I have is the proposals for the
Can he speak up into a microphone, please?
Go ahead.
I said the only thing I have
Can
is
you hear him
the
now?
Yes.
Okay.
proposals for the LED upgrade for the remaining streetlights, with the exception of, I think there's 4 on Vicenza that we decided would be left out due to privacy reasons for the homeowners. They've already been that way.
No, I didn't
We did.
remember, I didn't recall that, but,
We didn't do that.
what, the homeowners?
It had to do with the light shining in. This was not
We said
included in the
no.
other group that was done.
Mhm.
But this is the remaining 49 lights on Tree Line Avenue and for Prado.
Mhm.
For Prado?
It is, unless you put the wrong. Prado Drive.
I don't want to do
There's
Prado till we
16
take it.
16 poles.
Mhm.
We shouldn't do anything with Prado until we convey it to us.
Yeah. Why wouldn't we go ahead and change the bulbs up there? Right?
Maybe we can get Lennar to change it.
About the changes.
So we should be just, I guess I have an issue. We've already changed everything in Old Pelican?
Yes, everything is
So-
done. These are the remaining lights on Tree Line,
Okay.
and then the new ones
The
on Prado.
remaining lights on?
Tree Line.
Tree line.
Tree line
Okay,
avenue.
tree line, okay, I understand the tree line one, but
Yeah.
anything in Cypress Grove and back in there, that stuff hasn't been conveyed. We shouldn't be touching that stuff.
We've already done Cypress Grove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have.
Probably shouldn't have, but we did, so let's.
Yeah,
We did.
those are all
So
done.
we shouldn't keep doing it.
Because we've been paying those bills, so
Uh-huh.
we did it,
Well,
but we
yeah.
shouldn't have, yeah.
We shouldn't,
Yeah,
but we
which
did.
And-
decreases the
and it-
cost substantially.
And this goes doubly because we still have the issue of possibly, well, no, like, yeah, but if those
Yeah,
lights.
I guess we
You know,
probably don't want to do Prado.
Yeah, we probably do not want to do
Yeah.
Prado.
Not at
So
this
how-
time.
Do you have a, do you
I have a breakdown. 16 of them are on, were designated Prado Drive. 33 are on Tree Line.
Okay. how
Do the
much-
33.
How much would the 33 cost?
$20,295.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. We do the tree line lights to LED for the 20,395.
295. Yep. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
John, are you with us on that one? John? Is it- Okay, five to not, 5 to not.
John's got it.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, yes on Tree Line, no on the Prado Drive.
Right.
See if you can encourage WCI to do it. Well, I mean, you know,
They're
well,
paying the bill now.
we got nothing to
You
lose
know,
by it. Just
the
ask.
whole thing about them paying the bill.
We'd like them to
Several
conform to the
months.
rest of Pelican.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, until this month, nobody was paying those bills.
That's even better.
Um,
Okay.
Chris, I think this has to go to the board because it is in, yeah.
Over 10.
Huh?
Okay.
It's not a budgeted expenditure. So if you could get it, I know you can't get it on this week, in this week's, the next week's meeting, but if you could put it in the meeting after that, and Jason, I think we can go forward with this thing. You know, you can do the planning and.
Yeah, Jason can just send me the proposal.
Yeah.
And the financial part, I'll put it together and get it on the agenda.
Okay.
Will do.
Okay.
That's all that I have.
One of the things, after Carol Brocky sent out her report about the thefts within the community, it brought on us quite a number of emails from people about things that we could be doing better for security. We had a safety and security work group meeting last week. We talked about this, and one of the major areas where there were comments had to do with what I refer to as discipline at the front gate. That sometimes the front gate is not adhering to the procedures that they're supposed to. On the other hand, sometimes the residents are not helping the situation out. So we asked Ryan Morris to take a look at that, and he came up with, Ryan, if you would perhaps pass out that handout, just to give you an idea of where we're going at the front gate. This will take 3 or 4 minutes. And we're trying to just, you know, tighten up out there, make sure things are going as they should. And that, because that is one of the things, and he also has some information that I think will be of interest to all of you, so Brian, if you go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Morris. I'm the branch manager for Securitas and responsible for Pelican Preserve.
Yeah, Ryan, if you would talk right into the microphone.
Can you hear me
Bend-
better
You
now?
can adjust it.
Bend it down, yeah,
There you
bend
go.
it down. Yeah.
Okay. Again, my name is Ryan Morris. I'm with Securitas Security. I'm the branch manager responsible for Pelican Preserve, as well as the WCI portion for their construction area at Pelican Preserve. When we had some discussions in the safety committee meeting, I thought it best to sort of have a little flyer that I handed out this morning at the Pelican Preserve President's Meeting, so they could take that back to their individual neighborhoods. Sometimes when new residents move in, they may be not from a HOA community, or they may be from a different type of community with different rules and procedures. So I listed some basic information on this handout of what residents can do to help expedite their guests' entry into the community, as well as what the officers at the gate will be responsible for as far as the process of handling that visitor or vendor at the gate. It also came out of that meeting. I'll be working with Jason as far as sending out some communication periodically to residents, as far as some tips and suggestions throughout the season on, again, how to manage that process better, whether it's using the online or app portion of Dwelling Live, or calling the gatehouse directly for the guests to pre-authorize those folks. So that's sort of what we've done this morning as far as the communication piece. As far as some of the emails that we received for residents' concerns, a lot of those had to do with some thefts of pool pumps in the construction area. We were not told directly from Lennar that there were some incidents that happened, but third-hand information we were given, and we followed up on those items. I've reached out to WCI Lennar Construction. Hopefully they'll be communicating with me directly whenever there is an issue occurring on the property. What we have as far as procedural-wise now for the construction area to address those concerns from residents are following up with the construction gate staff, making sure they're securing that gate. The hours of operation are from 6 to 6 at that gate. They'll be logging in all of the vendors through the community, making sure they're keeping accurate records as far as company information, vehicle information, and what have you. The WCI Lennar pays for a construction patrol vehicle, which is from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., Monday through Friday, and 24 hours on Saturday and Sunday. What we've done with that is, again, make sure when they're driving around, they are recording any information as far as vehicles that may be left overnight, any suspicious type activity they see, but more importantly, they're communicating with the Pelican Preserve patrol vehicle any information as far as maybe vendors staying after hours, trying to come in early. So we have communication between the two patrol folks. We also, at 6 p.m., when that construction gate closes, we'll have the association patrol go and verify that, again, that gate has been secured, because obviously it's a concern to everyone that we're locking things up. So that's sort of what we've done to address the residents' concerns. The President's meeting, I answered a few issues that they had as far as discipline at the gatehouse, ensuring the staff is adhering to procedures. I have that discussion with them, and going forward, I think that you'll notice a significant difference with visitors being processed the way that we would like them to.
I just wanted the committee informed, and any questions you got of Brian.
Well, I just had one. Do you know the name of the construction contact for Lennar?
I do, yes.
Would you share that with me?
I believe the gentleman's name that I have is Matthew Korach. He's the one that I've been in communication
Spell
with.
his last name for me.
Koratich.
K-O-R-A.
T-I-C-H.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I make a suggestion, let's be sure that name is in the minutes.
Mm-hmm, okay,
That way we can refer back to it if we had to.
okay. We want to include Matthew Koratek's name, Koratich, in the minutes, please.
Identify who he is.
And he is the construction contact.
Lennar Construction
Lennar
contact.
Construction contact person.
There's also an on-site construction manager that I've talked to several times as well. I don't have his contact information handy, but we've also been speaking with the on-site folks as well.
Where do you reach him? Where do you find these on-site people?
The on-site people, generally they'll come through every day. They have like a manager's meeting on site. Our patrol folks know exactly who they are, so that's how we've been making contact with them. I've also.
Okay, I've ridden out there a couple times. I didn't find a hut or a trailer or a car that was designated. They're in the sales center?
Construction managers have offices.
Is
Thank you.
it like Mark and Sean and,
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
They're the construction managers.
okay.
Yeah, Matt
Thank you.
is, Matt is, I don't know.
Mark and Sean are.
So maybe it's the construction managers, Bob, that you want to get to in the sales center.
There, I usually see Sean, he does most of the, like the carriage homes. And I think Mark does
Yeah, I
most.
don't know the exact, what their responsibilities are. but
Yeah, I think Mark
Sean,
does the single
Mark
family.
Carroll last day was yesterday.
Okay.
Mark Carroll, Mark is no longer with Lennar.
Oh, yesterday was his last day?
Stephen Jolly is also.
Okay, thank you.
One other comment that I also made at the President's Council meeting this morning is Carol Brocky and I met with David Nigib and David Caldwell of Lennar. And I was surprised at David Nigib was kind of casual about the theft of construction materials, frankly. You know, he kind of regarded it as, it happens every place they do construction. It's a it's a cost of doing business. It's inventory shrinkage. He was a little on the casual side about it, that it was very hard to prevent at least some of it. And he also made the comment that the lion's share of it are inside jobs.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's their contractors.
If the contractors tell us.
Contractors
Oh,
are
yeah.
taking it, and in some cases, we got a couple of emails that indicated that there are residents
Oh, really?
who have gone over there and
Oh,
grabbed a
wow.
piece of plywood or taken a plant or
Oh,
something of that
yeah,
sort. I mean, these are the
yeah.
same people who take the towels from the,
I
And the
see
coffee.
people-
Center
I
and
see
the coffee-
people over
the
there
coffee
going
and
to
the
the
towel.
dumpsters looking for pieces of
Well, if
plywood
it's
and
from the
stuff.
dumpster.
It's
Yeah.
pretty funny
that's-
watching.
That's
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah.
But,
Construction managers have given people permission to go in the dumpster. I can tell you, I got a hold of my foot for the nail in one of them.
Well, yeah.
yeah. So,
It's in the dumpster.
so in any event, that's true. But, you know, we're trying to kind of tighten down on this and make sure that the gate is doing what it should. One of the thefts, as you may know, was not in the construction area. It happens to have been in my neighborhood where somebody's pool pump was stolen. It was installed on a Monday. Tuesday, the pool people came back to do some work on the pool, and the pump was gone. And I went over and looked at it. It had been sawed off, and somebody had gotten away with it. How they, you know, and to take a pool pump, I think you'd probably need a vehicle at some point, because they're pretty heavy things.
We'll have to be walking out with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it would have
Obvious,
had to
too.
been an inside job, because who else would have known a brand-new pool pump was
Yeah,
installed?
exactly, yeah.
You know?
So, in any event, any other questions of Brian?
Just one quick one. You said they log in all the construction vehicles that come in the back gate and leave?
Correct.
So, I know you addressed this morning, the construction vehicles still coming in from the front, because they're not getting logged in, then I would take. They just come through. They just open the gate for them. So are you gonna push for them to get them all to the back gate, so that they're all logged in?
Right, yes, we've adjusted the procedure that all construction vehicles will now be using that construction entrance.
Well, that's not new. That's supposed to have been for a long time. It just
Yes.
hasn't been happening.
Right. We were, the gate was allowing them to go through the main entrance if they were working at the clubhouse.
No, they've been
Well,
coming,
that makes sense.
incoming. I
Right.
watch them come down, because I walk early in the morning. They come down Pelican Preserve Boulevard, turn up Cypress
Yep,
Grove and into
exactly.
the new area. I see it all the time.
Yeah, we
So-
found that several of them, they knew if they dropped the name at the clubhouse, they would be let through the gate and then they would continue on. We've had discussions with those individual contractors about that that's not appropriate, and now we're directing all of that commercial traffic out through that other entrance.
Okay. Any other questions of Ryan? Ryan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Cypress Grove conveyance issues.
Chris had something that I think you wanted to say about that.
Okay, did he?
He's
Okay.
gone.
Well, let me talk about,
Maybe you know about it.
a little bit. Jan Bierce, took this job on is to try and document the deficiencies that are all over Cypress Grove, and they are multiple. She has done a heck of a job. She's recruited people like Joe and others, and they have found multiple problems on the roads with the curbing, for the monuments, landscaping, just all sorts of things. They've taken pictures. Jan has prepared a preliminary report, which Chris has a copy of, and Chris has been very supportive of this effort. And Jan spoke to the board about this, as did Joe, and they are supportive of the fact that we need to get Lennar to correct these deficiencies before we take over these areas, because it could cost us a hell of a lot of money, frankly, to correct them ourselves, because there are lots and lots and lots of problems. And so we are going to keep pressing this issue. And so, as I say, the board, I believe, is supportive. Certainly Chris has been very supportive of our efforts to try and get that done. Chris, do you want to make any comments on the conveyance issues?
Well, at the last meeting, we put Casella 1 and Casella 2 on the agenda, and which was the standard turnover methodology, which they do. They have the board accept it, and if said they're going to finish everything up when they do the final lifts and vertical, and if it's not done to our satisfaction, we have the bond money there, and expressed we aren't really interested in hiring people and supervising work and having residents wait. So this meeting, same thing, Casella 1 and 2 are coming up, and they want to address the sandbar issue, which was of concern. But the recommendation from the staff is to not accept any turnover and conveyance till the vertical construction's complete, so that everything's done when you go in and look at it, and you aren't taking portions of it, or portions of it get damaged by vertical construction. Our WCI wasn't too happy about that. They said that isn't the way we've done it in the past, and I said, well, we'll find out, but your attorney can speak, our attorney can speak, and the board can make the decision. But as of now, that's the position from the staff and our recommendation, that there is no turnover till everything's done in the community, and then you can walk through and take a look at it. They said, well, the storm's done. I said, yeah, but the storm turns into a giant garbage dump for all your subcontractors, the way your kitchen islands turn into, and the preserve areas in the back. They just throw everything down there, and then we have to look at it, or we have to clean it now, and that's not right. So I expect it to be a lively discussion next week.
Yeah. You want to make a comment about Solera? You mentioned it this morning.
Well, they had one of the road turnovers in Solero, and that was part of the whole thing, and came back from the property appraiser and the development department and said the way that plat was done for the road, you can't split the parcel the way they did it legally, so they're going back and told the developer to replat the road.
Oh, really?
So that'll probably take a little time, and also they'll have to have new title work because you're turning over a different road, and it'll probably slow things down.
So is it safe to say that Solera is officially not turned over?
Well, as far as I understand, it was conveyed at one time.
It was.
there was
Yeah,
a-
it was,
there was
it
a-
was reasonably
it was
recently.
like
Right.
2 or
that it was
3 months
conveyed.
ago.
Yeah.
And so what that throws into the monkey wrench, I don't know, but we'll find out Thursday also, because it's on the agenda for the attorney to address.
Who's going to be there Thursday?
I don't know who's assigned. I'm planning to be there.
I'm
Yeah.
planning on being there, especially if
Oh,
Solaro's
okay.
on the agenda.
The reason being is I believe we've taken over the landscaping expenses did we not? Or did the association do that now?
We took over the landscaping of the monument, the master of the monument and the cul-de-sac.
Okay, so we're spending some money.
Yep.
But the
I'm
associ-
scheduled.
Okay, but the association in Solera, I guess, is taking over the landscaping responsibility if it's been conveyed.
Well, we
Well,
already had
that's a
responsibility for
different
that.
conveyance.
Oh, okay.
That's a different
Okay.
turnover.
Yeah.
The turnover of the community is different than the turnover,
Of
the
the
conveyance
roads.
to
All
the
right.
CDD. That's a different issue.
Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
the only thing the CDD's taken over is the cul-de-sac and the monument, which is pretty minimal.
Pretty minimal.
Yeah.
And that's the reason, frankly, and it's the only community in Cypress Grove that's been turned over, and it was kind of done before we could get there, but we weren't that upset by it, because it's a pretty small, there weren't a lot of.
It's pretty small, there
there
are
were a lot of
some,
there were not a lot of issues.
there were some
The
issues though
CDDs
that
were-
never got addressed because it happened so quickly.
And Mr. Measy, if I may comment too, this past week when we were putting that together, Michael Tisch and myself had gone out there, and the one section of Casella One with the multifamily is about 750 feet, and we took 50 pictures of separate damage from construction, going from sidewalk to brick pavers, to curb and gutter, and each one was a separate incident.
Oh, yeah, and Jan Beers has, she and her committee have gotten a lot of pictures, so. The other issue that's gonna arise here is, once it is conveyed, if they're still doing construction out there, the construction traffic may do some destructive things, and I assume that there's gotta be some kind of a mechanism for Lennar to correct anything that they do, that the construction traffic problems that they cause. Then Bob, you also.
Yeah, we have our checklist, been working with Chris and with Tetra Tech. Tetra Tech is the role of filling out a spreadsheet I gave, which takes every conveyance, puts the video that's on it, just like we did on Old Pelican.
Mhm.
And he told me that should be done by the end of next week.
Okay.
And then we're doing a follow-up for those things that were found. Do we now have to close the loop on?
Mhm.
We have some new items since the last time this group met, with problems of a sandbar in a pond in Carina, and problems with aeration throughout the community, throughout the 7 ponds we're taking. So they're all now on our list, and we're working our way through.
Do you want to just brief the group on the two preserved parcels that were conveyed to?
Yeah, last time we talked about it, I got
Yeah.
the assignment of checking. When it was reported by Castle that 2 of the conservation areas had been transferred over to the HOA. So we dug into that and found out, in fact, the Lennar had issued a quitclaim, or WCI, deed change. I sent it to Tony, he has reviewed it. Our official position is that we're not going to accept that everything that is conveyed has to be conveyed to this body and not to the HOA, which they control. Ed Tinkle is now championing this, and I gave him copies of these quitclaim deed and all the information relative to it, and it will be a topic of the board meeting next week. But fundamentally, we're just saying it's inappropriate for the right hand of WCI to give it to the left hand of WCI, without the residents who will ultimately have the responsibility getting a say in it.
Mhm.
So as we sit here, we have 2 of them. 2 of them have been conveyed to the HOA, we the residents, not us. But we're gonna turn that around.
Mhm.
I have not received a single reply to numerous emails to Caldwell to what their costs are. So from my point of view, kind of a separate issue, but we should not take the preserves in calendar year, fiscal year 18, because they haven't told us what the costs are.
Mhm.
So that's not in our budget. So they chose through these past months to not give us information. So when it comes time to convey that, my recommendation to the board, throw it back on them until the next fiscal year.
Mhm.
Does that include the big preserve with the
That was not part of it.
bridges? Okay, so,
That was not part of it.
okay, so that one is, quote, the CDDs?
Oh, no.
No. No.
That's not, but the bridges are.
But the bridges are, that's right. We have the path.
We have the path.
Okay, so the
And
path
bridges.
has been conveyed over to the CDD?
Yes, apparently.
Apparently, however.
We get into legal interpretation, but they got a document
Now
saying.
it becomes
the
Tony's-
plot becomes a lot thicker because of the problem of the fact that Sienna owns
Right.
part of that path. And I have been pushing for months to get the Sienna people and the Lennar people to get together to come up with an agreement that would allow Lennar to take over that part of the path.
That Sienna owns.
That Sienna owns, or at least get a right-of-way so that the entire place would belong
But
in one.
if the CDD already owns the path,
Well, we
I'm
don't.
confused now.
Yeah.
Do we not?
I don't think we own the path, right?
We do, up until the point we don't. We own everything except what Sienna owns.
Yeah. And so.
We own everything up until
And
what
so
Sienna
we're,
owns.
we're
The
trying,
point
we're,
is-
tr- we're trying to get, Lennar to come up with a deal to get a right-of-way, and they have to provide certain things to,
But that doesn't have anything
Sienna.
to do with the bridges, right? All the bridges are ours, all of them.
yeah. And then, eventually, we will then have the whole thing.
I'm just confused as to why Lennar's doing it, we already own
Well.
everything except for that.
Well, I'm,
I am too, why wouldn't the CDD be?
I'm not sure. I
Exactly.
think, I don't think we own everything except for that. I think we,
I don't know.
Okay, from the path point of view, that's what the document said, the path point of view.
okay.
But
There's
it's
still
a
confusion.
mess.
It's a
I
mess.
agree, no, I agree.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? on
conveyance.
Conveyance? Okay, if not, we'll move
The whole
on.
issue has slowed down a lot. It was very, very hot, April, May.
Well,
still
Lennar is
pushing?
starting to push it
Good,
pretty hard.
okay.
You'll hear about it at the meeting.
Good,
They're,
okay.
We'll be there. The signs on Pelican Preserve Boulevard, we at least, we won here. For
They
the
were removed today, right? They're not
Residents,
there.
they're gone. They are gone.
I don't know when they went out, they were there yesterday.
Yeah,
or not
they're
the other
gone.
day.
They went out
The-
yesterday afternoon.
Yesterday afternoon. The question, I think, is, what will Lennar now do?
With no signs.
They own property on Benito Drive as well as rights-of-way next to the path. Whether they will take any action on that, I don't know. Carol Brocky reported this morning that, or I guess Terry Lolio reported that they had a meeting yesterday, the staff, and they now are starting to recognize that this community doesn't want those signs. And that perhaps they are changing their outlook with regard to Pelican Preserve. We are not like any other community apparently they've dealt with.
That could be
That
good or
I am
bad.
sure.
I
And
would-
so,
I would have been fine with one sign at the corner with directions saying to turn.
yeah.
That one sign.
If they
That
had
would've been
been,
fine.
if they'd been smart enough to just put in one or even two signs,
Yeah.
nobody would have said anything.
Yeah.
But
Put
they,
10 up.
they put 10 up and then.
Does anybody know how the city came to
Oh,
comment?
that's right, they came into play.
Somebody called them in.
Wasn't me.
So,
Huh? It was, what? No.
what was?
No, I think I know who it was.
what
I
was
think
the-
I do
what
too,
the-
but-
What was the basis for the city telling them to remove them?
Somebody called them in and they were not according to code.
So if they want to put them on the other street, are they still going to have to get permission from the city?
That's an up in
That's a
the air,
good
that's an up in
question.
the air question, that's right.
Because it's
As
a
to whether the city, because if they weren't code on Pelican Preserve Boulevard,
Mhm.
they still may not be code on Benito. So that is part of the
My
issue.
understanding,
Yeah.
you have to get a permit for each sign, put it up. and then
Well-
by all the engineers at that proper location to get a permit.
Yeah, so they probably need permits, but we don't know that right at this point.
It might have to be approved through your architectural review committee.
That's right.
That's another step that
That
the
that
city
is
would
another step that
recognize.
the city wanted done, and the Architectural Control Committee
Was skipped.
hated the signs, and in fact, they had already sent a letter to Darren.
Which, by the way, is made up of residents.
Right, of
Right.
course,
Right.
yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, but
Surprise,
the
surprise.
residents are picked by WCI. That architectural control committee is not volunteer. WCI picks each one of the.
Yeah, except,
But they're all residents.
but they're all residents, and they did send a letter to Darren, what's his name? Saying, we won't get those signs out of here, so I think we're okay. All right, moving on, capital reserve study.
Progress.
Ah,
Over the month that I was gone, and maybe I need to take another month off, Philip Robner did a lot of good work with Jason and a few other folks and resolved a lot of the questions we had on what assets, like irrigation and computers and other kinds of things, belong to the CDD or not. And we got 99% of that resolved, and it looks like none of that belongs to the CDD. It's all Master Association stuff, okay? Met today with Chris, And he's indicated that he's going to try to put an RFP together over the next 3 weeks. And hopefully by the time we meet again, we'll have something actually for you guys to look at. All right? And then maybe a month after that, we might actually be on a contract. We'll see how that works out, but, yeah, movement.
And that, and doing that is in the budget, right, Nancy,
Yes.
for?
We have money
$25,000.
to pay for the study?
Yep.
Yeah, we have 25,000 in the budget.
If I may add one,
Sure.
two other items. Right now, the district's getting ready to issue an RFP for a rate study for utility services. And we're also going to issue
Chris,
a.
can you speak up?
Okay, we're going to issue an RFP for utility services, basically the rates that we're charging and fees, to review that. And we're also issuing an RFP for an assessment methodology, because the ERC, ERU way that it's calculated today is the same way they did it 25 years ago. So we're going to have a consultant look at that. And if you have any questions you might want to add or get answered, like I had one fella say, well, why am I paying the same for the pond project whether I live on a pond or not? Well, it's explanatory. You can say it's a stormwater system for the whole community, but does that add value to that person's property, that his assessment should be different? Or commercial versus the residential, are they being assessed the same way or at the same level for stormwater, say, that a commercial structure is? And we're also looking at a stormwater utility in that mix. So instead of putting in, okay, here's treatment for littorals, ponds, et cetera, it would all go under one category. And the assessment would be for stormwater itself, much the way other municipalities do, and it would be very transparent. And the money that's going to those ponds now would shift into that stormwater utility, and probably a small assessment, but at least then you could see where the money's going and what it's for versus another $60 in your assessment for the ponds. And all you see is the number's bigger. It's not broken out. So that's another thing we're looking at. But if you have any questions or concerns about that assessment methodology, maybe how it's done between the master and Pelican, we could certainly pose those questions to the consultant and address them, because I don't want you to look at the study, a year from now and go, boy, I wish they would have put this in there.
Yeah, I think we would be interested in how Pelican is looked at versus the rest of Gateway, because there are some things that Pelican shares
Right.
with Gateway, and we, and then there are some things that we are absolutely doing on our own, like the ponds work and the like. And the ponds work is a big part of our budget, and I don't want to speak for Bob, but I think we would be very interested in how your company is going to treat
Oh, sure.
that
And
area.
look at some of those questions, and one of them that just came up too is, okay, you have the soccer field. I don't think Pelican takes part in that recreational assessment.
We did at one time.
Right. And then when we looked at the same thing too, well, we have a huge soccer league that charges big money. People bring in big money for it, and they've refused to provide their financial statements, but they aren't really paying us anything to use the snack bar. But we're cleaning it and they're taking the revenue. And then if you're bringing a child from outside Gateway, should that child be surcharged $50 like the kid from Gateway's family pays? And it's really a touchy issue when you talk about the children, so to speak. But those are some hard issues we're looking at. And the same thing with the lights. There's some leagues that pay for it, some that don't. Why? If you're using the lights, and not only using the lights and the electricity, but we're going to assign a capital cost to it for replacement. So across the board, if you have
Long
any
overdue.
issues like that, yeah, bring it up, and we'll include it in the purview to be looked at.
Okay. Anything more on capital reserve study, Ron?
Not directly, but one of the things that we found as we went through this process, as you all know, there's a fence of various types of materials that surrounds the community. Only a very small portion of that is the responsibility of the CDD, and the rest of it is the Master Association. So at some future date, we may want to look at that as to why the heck are we looking at, 10% of the total fencing.
Are you suggesting
Okay.
that the whole thing should?
No,
No.
not at all. I'm not suggesting either one. I'm
I
just
see.
saying it should be one or the other.
Yeah.
And we can discuss which one makes most sense.
Because we've paid in the past to pressure treat the wall.
Well, the wall is one
The one
thing.
near Santa.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
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 the one that
right.
runs,
Yeah,
runs
right,
down.
but all of the rest of the fencing, like the big fence they put around the back of the community, that's all gonna go to the master association. I mean, if you look at the totality of it, we have this very small little portion for whatever reason. And, you know, future reference, something to look at in the future.
To me, that's kind of like a conservation area. Before that's given to the HOA, it really ought to be conveyed to the CDD. So we can go out and inspect the fence, make sure it's good. But them giving it to the HOA, it's the same as the conservation area. Right hand of Lennar is giving it to the left hand of Lennar. And if there's problems, we're gonna have it. So that would follow, the logic of that transfer
Mhm.
would say we would want to be part of
But-
that conveyance.
But you're saying conveyance, but,
Like the back fence.
yes, I understand,
Yeah.
but it's already owned by the master association.
Well,
Is that right, what you're telling me?
I
Let's-
believe that's correct, right, Jason? The new fence in the back of the community, it's I guess it's
Fredo
wrought iron,
Pistola.
the big wrought iron fence, that's already your responsibility?
Yeah, the master has the
See, that,
fence line in front of
See, I think that's wrong. I think that should
well, I
have come
agree,
to us.
But
that's different than the other conveyances where it's from Lennar to somebody. This has already been conveyed to the master association, as I understand it.
As the conservation area in Matarita has.
Yeah.
And we're trying to review that.
Review
I would
that.
throw this in that same
Mhm,
can of
category.
worms and say, let's review it.
Ron, anything
Okay,
else?
that's it.
John, you have any comments on the capital reserve study?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Bond update regarding claim on funds, we keep putting this in here. Bob, you still are trying to determine,
One of the proposals that I'm going to make today, a motion,
yeah,
is to accept a bid for aeration phase 2.
yeah.
And I haven't confirmed the numbers yet, but I think this will wipe out the remaining funds in the bond fund.
Mhm.
Less some roads and other things, but our portion.
Mhm.
So probably a month from now, we'll be in a better position to talk to them.
Okay, the only change that I'm aware of is, and I think Chris mentioned this at the last meeting, and I saw where that actually happened, was that the work that was done across the bridge on the roads, that has now been charged to the bond funds.
Oh, the final lift?
The final lift, yeah.
Yes.
And that
Yeah,
curb
that was
and gutter
done.
that was-
So- But as far as I know, if, when you're through with your effort, Bob, there's still the Lennar WCI monies before the bond,
For the model areas.
before the account can be closed.
Correct.
So.
But we will, the CDD will have handled everything that we are responsible for handling to satisfy the bond. Less, as far as I know, the only thing left is the model home street, the final lift. And they're building there now, so.
Mhm.
But it looks like we will get that done certainly by the end of next year, if not this year.
Well, the bond council was
Yeah.
anxious to
Yes,
close the books and.
Yep.
And move on.
and we should satisfy that with today's motion.
And if we have our, what we're interested in out.
Yep.
I don't know that it matters if bond council were to take action.
Mhm. Anything further on that? GSCDD board meeting, you got the written reports, and I think the major things were things we've discussed previously, so I think we can go beyond that one. Ponds Work Group.
Okay, I'm going to be making a couple of motions today. The first is aeration phase 2. We had a bid opening meeting here at the district offices before I left. We had only 2 people place bids for aeration phase 2. One was a company called Earth Tech Enterprises, and their bid was $354,000. If you take out Pond 13, and I'll explain this in a minute, then their bid was $300,000. The second bidder was TSI Disaster Recovery. Their bid was $414,000. But if you take out Pond 13, which is the golf driving range, if anybody wanted to know, then their bid was $329,000. So the difference between the 2 bids without the golf driving range is less than 10%. So we got a work group, the Ponds Work Group made a recommendation which we forwarded to our engineering company. We would like to have TSI Disaster Recovery because of the outstanding job they did for us in Phase 1. And even though they weren't the low bidder, the quality of the work they did and the responsiveness to the residents' concern said that why would we take a chance with somebody new for less than 10%? We got that affirmation. It came in the form of a communication to Chris. So I'm going to make a motion that PPAC approve the work group's choice of TSI Disaster Recovery to do aeration Phase 2 for $329,000.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Nancy Hall seconds. Bob, just a couple of questions.
Yep.
So you're just not gonna do Pond 13?
Right now, we'll just
Yeah.
put it off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I've been trying to get WCI to pony up to pay for part of that
Yeah.
pond. I was making inroads with Joe Smith, didn't get any more than good news, I mean, good words. But I'm still think that they should be paying, that one's about $1,000 a month.
Mhm.
And it's the biggest pond we have. And so why put aeration in it at our cost?
Mhm.
But we may do it in the future.
And my second question is, so how many ponds now is this 329 covered?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ponds.
9 ponds.
And 4 of those 9 ponds are in the new community.
Okay, and the other 5 are old?
The other ones are Old Pelican,
Old
yes,
Pelican.
Old Pelican.
Why are we doing new community?
Well, we thought, but if we put this bid out, we were gonna have them.
Oh, yeah, that's.
And the other part of it is the new communities, WCI installed aeration in all but these 4. So by the time we get this done, I'm sure we're gonna be,
Yeah, and it makes sense for us to start protecting those ponds.
Yes.
They're gonna be our
Yeah.
responsibility
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
Leg up on the old one.
yep.
Any other discussion of this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 6-0.
Okay, the next thing is approval for downspouts. Okay, we are moving right along ever so glacially in our downspout initiative. We have, the Avila community is completely finished. That's 3 different ponds, 27, 25, and 29. We spent roughly $55,000, but they're all done. And this was a case where we had to rip out the old stuff and replace. Because of the construction of the Avila homes, we only did from the rear of the home to the pond. We did not do any of the middles or any of the fronts because we don't have access. There's all kind of utilities in there. There's pathways and things like that. So we're doing each community as we can. The Tiberio community is completed on 4/1, and that was $75,000. We have proposals, and that's what I'm going to be making here today. First of all is Portofino. The total proposal is going to be $118,000, plus or minus. We are going to be responsible for 70-some thousand of that, and the homeowners over there are going to pick up the other 35, because they want every home done, whether it's on a pond or not. We have a proposal today for Monticello, and that's $85,000. It covers three ponds. That has previously been, I'm sorry, that's already been approved by this body. We're starting work on it next week. That's what I really want to say. Monticello starts work next week. Toscano,
And it's been approved by the...
we've approved it, and the board.
And the
both.
board.
Yes, that's all approved. The Toscano community, we've approved, and the board has approved, and we hope that they'll be starting that one immediately after Monticello. We are currently working on, in addition to Portofino, we're working on Verona and Viadana, Milano, and Trieste. And to
So
that,
you're working on those have all been...
these are the bids I'm going to give to you today and say I'm going to make a motion that we approve. So we'll start with the first one. I make a motion that we approve Copeland Southern Enterprises to work on the project on Lake 6, or Pond 6, which is on Trieste Drive, and the amount is $8,775.
Is there any reason why we can't do all of them at the same time?
It's okay with me, I just want
Yes, yeah.
That's okay. 'cause
Okay,
he's
that's
just
the
gonna-
first one.
He's just gonna read all these
Yeah, why
bond
don't
you
dates
read
to us.
Okay, that's the first one. The second,
I'm confused, it's
Okay.
8,775, I'm looking at 13, or am I in the wrong?
you might be on, I'm on pond 6. I don't think you guys have these, do you?
Yeah, we don't, oh, okay.
You had some old ones, you don't have all this.
Oh, okay.
I've been pushing to get the proposals because of the lengthy time it takes to get it through here, P-PAC, and I don't want the contractor to leave.
Mhm.
So that's the first one. The second one is to do Pond 7, which is also in Trieste Drive, for $5,775. The next one is Pond 10 in Trieste Drive, and this one is $22,775. The variability in price is the number of homes that are on the pond. The next one is Pond 28, which is Verona and Sevilla, and that's $22,775. And all of these contractors are going to Copeland Southern Enterprises. The next one is Pond 33, which is in the Valentina Camarilla area, and that is $13,775, Pond 33. The next one is Pond 34, which is between Viadana and Milano Camarel. And the price there is $48,775. The next one is Pond 38, and this is behind Viadana, going to on the right-hand side of the street, between the golf course paths, but that new pond they just built out there, just before Palazzo. And that's $20,875. I have the Toscano, Chris, this is for you. I'll just leave that as a proposal right now. So that's my proposal for those. So
What's the total bucks, Bob, you know?
I haven't done that.
Okay.
Somebody got a calculator, I can read them off
Well,
real quick.
My suggestion, at least, so how many of them are there?
These are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Why don't you make the motion in terms of the number to be done, and then we'll get the details of how much, so that we can include those in the motion when they go in the minutes.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah.
The 7 proposals from Copeland Southern Enterprises, and then I'll put in the dollar amount.
Okay. Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Need a second. Discussion.
God bless you.
Bless you. Any
The issues that we have had up till now is we're having a difficult time getting good, responsible, reliable contractors that want to do the work.
Mhm.
Copeland is a mom and pop shop, and these guys are doing outstanding work.
Mhm.
Any issues that come up with the residents, they're handling them, and they're doing it right. We've already run off 2 contractors, and we're starting a new one today. They just broke ground today, and that's Bill Riley's company, and he's doing Portofino. And we hope that he'll be robust and be able to do it. But this is hard work, and people don't want to do it.
Any questions of Bob? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, the 2 are for Chris. This is questions to you, really. We have previously approved Toscano for $33,775, and that was in that, I sent you a note, in the June meeting. And we had previously approved Monticello when there were 4 components to Monticello, and apparently we've only issued POs on 3 of them. So I brought both of these if we can get together after the meeting for whatever we've missed to get them done. But they were previously approved.
I have a curiosity question.
Yes, sir.
Why do they always end in 775? Is that some kind of a sale number?
I don't know. You'd think 995.
Yeah,
I don't know.
right.
I have no idea. So the summary to date
Yeah.
is that with these being approved to now, we're just over $500,000, 500,000 and change. So it is more costly than we originally thought. I'm not really surprised by that, but it's more costly. The remaining homes, the remaining communities that I haven't brought forth at all are Milano, because they don't have any ponds, Bellagio, and that one we had previously estimated at 90,000, so it's going to be a significant cost. Siena, which should be a rather modest cost. Ravenna, again, a very modest cost because of their condo buildings. Vincenza, because it's not built out. Treviso, not very many homes there on ponds, but it's still got to be done. The balance of Trieste, right now, we're only doing pond 6. We've got to do pond 3 and pond 10. Palazzo, there's not very many there. There's only going to be 2 buildings, but. And then Trentino Estates is about 90% done, but we need to go back in and verify. And then we have 7 homes on Sevilla. So we're probably maybe 200,000 to get completed, ballpark. And most of that's going to be.
Old Cypress. I mean,
That's
it's
old,
just
that's old Pelican. So when we finish this, I'm going to guess we still have about $250,000 to then start on the Cypress Grove communities. And we budgeted next year $100,000 there, so we'll have $300,000 to get started. So that's why when the discussion comes around whether our surplus is real or not, it's very likely that we're going to need a lot of that money out there. But I always expected it's going to be a 5 or 6 year project. So, let's see, next, water break.
And
Oh.
all of those that we passed, those have to go.
To the board.
To the board. So
Well,
you-
I like to take them all, yeah,
Yeah.
even if some of the amounts
Are smaller.
are
but-
smaller.
But you and Chris will get together.
Yes,
on-
and as we have discussed, we missed the next meeting,
Yes,
but Margaret is coming to Pelican early next week, and I'm gonna give her a tour of our lake restorations, so she can see what we've done to compare it in her own mind to what they're doing over here. And I told Chris that with all due respect, I'm going to lobby her to get that as a walk-on at the next meeting, simply because I don't wanna wait a month.
Mhm.
I don't want the contractors to walk away. If she says, no, she really is,
well, it wouldn't be a month, though, it would just be a couple of weeks, right?
well, they only do it 1 month, 1 meeting a month.
Twice.
So if you don't, I thought we had to have it all for 1 meeting.
No.
No, I think you could.
Okay, then that was my bad.
Yeah.
I thought that the first meeting was the only one you could do
Yeah, I
it,
think you could get it to the September.
Then it won't be a big deal.
September 1st meeting.
because then if I have a problem, I'll go to Chris to get him to approve the ones under 10,000. So we'll save the couple over, and we know we won't lose the contract.
And the concern with the chair too is when you don't have all those items in, like we just turned our agenda items in Tuesday.
Yeah.
The agenda will be published today, so that's 7 days before the board meeting, then the public doesn't have an opportunity to look at it, or the board members, so they understand it's Pelican's business, but they're required to post and allow
Right.
Pelican and the general
And
public.
and it makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay, the next item for discussion was, as we all know, we had a water break. It happened in the Camerel neighborhood. And so we took numerous pictures of it, and unfortunately, City of Fort Myers, and when they responded, they washed an awful lot of sand and things into our sewer system. Forget about the bank erosion and everything in the flowway, they're gonna fix that too. But we are now working together to make sure that they come out and clean those catch basins and pipes. So deferring that one to my esteemed colleague.
I sent you pictures and an inquiry over to the City of Fort Myers Utility Department.
So-
Said that you wanted to schedule when it was gonna be cleaned up, when
Yep.
you were gonna be out there working the repairs.
Yep, and it's no small economic impact. When we engage a catch basin cleaner, we pay $15,000 a week. So it's a pretty good chunk of change. Okay, the Palazzo community is now becoming more and more active in their problems with their piping system. And to that end, they made a formal request under the Freedom of Information or the government or with some kind of a thing to Chris for the videos, which we did in 2011 to 12. So I've conveyed all that over to him, so he's got it, and just information for us to know that we got a community that's, very interested in this.
that is not, though, a direct responsibility of the CDD, is it not? Or is it?
I don't know how to answer that. It's
Mhm.
private roads, but it's
Right.
our ponds.
Ah, okay.
In the other similar communities, we have undertaken to do it for them.
Okay.
I don't know if that's
Mhm.
right or wrong, but,
Yep.
and since they're paying taxes and all that other
Yep.
stuff, I kind of
Yep.
feel that we ought to do right by them too.
Okay.
And we in fact did clean 3 of them back in 2011 and 12. conveyance on Tetra Tech, oh, for the update, I already talked about that, the conveyance items, they've got a master list, they're gonna give us all that. We have been, the ponds work group has been following up on any repairs to aeration that we installed. But what I'd like to bring to this body is to say that in the future, from here on, since this is an up and functioning thing, I'd like to transfer that to Castle. So we'll give them the contacts, we let the contract for the supplier that does it, but rather than having people calling us, day and night to do it, it seems to me that ought to go to the HOA, to Castle to do. So if I don't have any objections or. Resident complaints regarding aeration. We'll give you the list of the ponds and who our contractor is for it. But the weekly follow-up daily when it's not working, if you guys can start following.
Instead of going to you, it will go to
Yeah.
whatever contractor may be.
Yes, it's all one contractor. But we're reaching the level of maturity now, we have the stuff installed, and now it's just maintenance and keeping it going. And in my judgment, I think that's really something that you guys should be doing.
But how about in this case, on a lot of this stuff, the billing goes to Castle, right, for the HOA agreement stuff. But in this-
Not on this, it comes to us.
Well, that's what I mean.
We
So it's-
budget it
it's-
and we
It's
pay.
different, yeah.
I'm
So.
only talking
so-
about resident calls and complaints.
Complaints, okay, so you're not talking about,
No, just for them to do the follow-up, because what happens is we're getting phone messages that I'm not here, and then something doesn't happen for a while, like then Trudy called. So this way, we have somebody that's here all the time to do it.
okay,
So we're gonna get it all installed, we're gonna make sure it's up and running, we're gonna follow the first year warranty. But once it gets beyond the warranty period, then we'll, lake by lake, we'll turn it over to Castle to do. So if the board is, or PPAC is in support of that, we'll just go ahead and do it. And the last thing is just a reminder that Chairman Feinberg is coming out to take a tour, and if anybody else would like to be made aware of it, come with us, you're all more than welcome. And that's all we've
when
done.
is she gonna,
At her pleasure. I told her whenever she's ready, I'm ready.
okay.
And that's it.
Any other questions of Bob?
This
Yes.
is kind of going back to the reserve study. We're still looking for an input from you, Bob, on how the ponds should be covered as part of the reserve study.
Oh, I didn't know that, okay, forgive me. If you gave me that assignment, I missed it.
Well, yeah, and I
Okay.
sent you an email update just to, because I need
And I don't
Philip-
have a clue, so what,
I need Philip to work with you, 'cause
yes,
you and I
Philip,
are not
we
supposed to
can
work
give them
on
the
it.
acreage and all,
Okay.
but there's a formula out there that says X number of years you gotta dredge. And you dredge without aeration, it's, every 20 years. If you dredge with aeration, it's 40 years. But
Get
yes,
that, so we can include that in the RFP.
absolutely needs to.
Because some of these guys have indicated they don't have any experience with ponds.
And they have more than I do.
Well, we'd like to find somebody who would, but we need that.
Yeah, we've got
input.
that. We have that resource
Give
available.
it to Philip.
Gulf Coast University and
We'll give
the
it
Lee
to
County
Chris.
Hyacinth Control can both help us with that.
Bob, a quick question. Did you say with aeration, it's 40 years?
40 to 50. It doubles the length of time that you have to do dredging.
Okay, and do you have a rough price for dredging that we could put in the reserve?
I do not, but it's going to be significant, but I have no idea what it is.
How do we get that for the reserve study?
Tetra Tech, I'm sure, can get it to us.
Okay.
It doubles the length
All right. Any other questions of Bob?
The very last thing before I hang up is the condition of the ponds. As you all know, we have been struggling this year with the very, very dry weather, the very, very wet weather. The littorals are migrating out into the middle of the pond. We're not happy with it. We're not happy with a lot of it. Part of the change is Mother Nature, and there's not much we can do about it. The other part is the responsiveness of our supplier. The work group had a review July 18th or so with our current provider. We told them we wanted a dramatic response in improvement by September the 1st in the quality of their service. We told them we were willing to pay extra money if we had to, but we want them right, and we want them right now. We sent communications to Chris, copying everything we've said. We put him on formal notice, I guess, for lack of a better word, that they've got till September 1st to make dramatic improvement. These people were considerably cheaper than anybody else. I really want them to succeed. But we've had a bit of a problem where they think they're gonna teach us what we want, rather than us teaching them what we need. And it's a simplification, but, every time we show them something we don't like, he's telling me how healthy it is. So I told him, the dog don't like the dog food. If you can't fix it or are unwilling to fix it, then we're gonna have to move on. So I may be in our next meeting telling you we've changed suppliers. I don't know. I hope not. But at least be aware that that's under consideration.
And this is for all the.
All the ponds,
maintenance.
all the ponds.
This is lakes and wetlands, then.
No, yeah, lakes and wetlands.
Lakes and wetlands,
That is
yeah.
correct.
Who was
So-
your next highest?
I'll have to go and look. I think it was Lake Masters. But I've also had contact from our previous supplier saying, in effect, we looked at your ponds, are you happy? And if you're not, we're willing to sharpen our pencil to get the business back.
And
So
we
that-
were, we were very happy with them, they just were
Yes,
high. Yeah.
yes, they were very high. So I even know that I don't think they could have really handled everything that happened, but I think their response would have been quicker. So again, because of the cost, I'm hoping our current supplier can come around. We're gonna have another review next week. But they're supposed to be bringing equipment in here by Monday or Tuesday of next week, specifically at the Viadana and the Camarel areas and Tiberio, because they look bad. And if they can collect it and do it all, then they'll be a little closer to saving their jobs. So that's everything.
Any more questions of Bob? Safety and Security Work Group. We have received the final report from Johnson Engineering, the final traffic report. And we are gonna be working, and you will get copies of the report. We're gonna be working on coming up with proposals based on the report. There isn't a tremendous amount in it, frankly, but as you may recall, we were told by the board that we had to have a traffic study. But the proposals that we will be probably coming up with is first, the signage and road markings over the bridge on Pelican Preserve Boulevard definitely need improving. We knew that, but they made specific recommendations, and we'll probably be coming to you with that. In addition, and that's probably about, and it occurs to me, Nancy, that maybe we ought to be adding this stuff into the budget for next year.
Too late.
Huh?
Too late.
Too late.
Here's our 2%.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, we can just, then there are.
We'll probably have enough money
Huh?
there anyway.
Yeah.
We don't know what the proposals are.
Well,
That's Bob's line.
Right.
Trust me.
They also have proposals of improving, well, we asked them to look at the roundabout or the four-way stop at Pelican Preserve Boulevard and Benito, because people were concerned about the safety of that. They came up with 3 proposals. One of them was to turn it into a roundabout.
Real roundabout.
And 2 of the 3 proposals, frankly, are quite expensive. We will probably be looking at the 3rd proposal, which is to improve some of the markings there, particularly the pedestrian crossings and some of the things that are going on there. So we'll probably come up with a proposal on that. 3rd important one, and we have to decide exactly what we propose in this regard, is that they determined that you can't run golf carts in 4-foot wide lanes. They gotta be 6 feet wide, at least. So that leaves various ways we can approach that. One of the ones they gave us, which was an expensive one, was to remark the roads and put 6 foot lanes.
Narrow the lanes?
Now, well, it turns out that Pelican Preserve Boulevard has a 12-foot lane, a 10-foot lane, and a 4-foot lane. And we could make it 2 10s and a 6 would be one possibility.
But that would eliminate having a bicycle lane then.
That would eliminate having a bicycle lane.
Oh, but so they wouldn't be able to go down the cart lane?
Well,
Well,
Well, they would, but they wouldn't have a
They wouldn't have an
dedicated.
exclusive lane.
Oh, yeah, not exclusive, right.
And that's a very expensive thing to do, because you gotta you know, you gotta try and get rid of the stripes that are there.
Oh, yeah.
So I suspect that's not gonna be one of the proposals. But anyway, those were the three major things. There's some other things embedded in the report that may be of interest. They tracked the speed of vehicles on Pelican Preserve Boulevard. And it turns out that the benchmark that they look at for most roads is what's called an 85 percentile thing, which is how many cars go this speed or less. You know, 85% of the cars go that speed or less. And on on the leg of Pelican Preserve Boulevard from Trieste to Veneto, that speed was about 38 miles an hour. So it was less than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. The general determination was that there were about on average, 4 or 5% of the cars that exceed the speed limit by 10 or more miles an hour. There's a less than 1% that exceeded by 15 miles an hour or more. The feeling is that, you know, I don't know, you know, we will continue to have the police in here to try and control that. Their reading is that the violation that's more frequent is people going through stop signs and not stopping. And of course, that's what they've given most of their citations for. I've asked for a summary of the citations, number of citations given for that. It turns out that I've got to go through a Freedom of Information Act or something in order to get it from the city.
Sounds familiar.
Nonetheless, we will be getting that. So expect within the next month or two that we'll be coming forward with some recommendations.
So you're not gonna distribute the study to PPAC until after you have recommendations?
Yes, right, and along with the recommendations. Would you prefer to have it now?
Well, I'd just like to read it.
Sure. All right.
Well, it's, going back to the lanes, is one of the options to make that a dedicated bike lane then? And just leave the golf carts back in
Yes,
the lanes?
yes, one of the options is to do that.
That's the cheapest option, probably.
That's the cheapest option. Now, I should tell you that the recommendation of Johnson Engineering was because of the speed at which the golf carts travel, that we drop the speed on Pelican Preserve Boulevard to 20 miles an hour.
20?
To do that, 20. And we think that's not a practical, that is not a practical solution. So we're gonna make a recommendation that's not specifically in the report.
Did they ever talk about paths around the the preserves? or
Yeah,
was that
they
in there
looked
all?
at it, and there really isn't anything much they came up with,
Okay.
frankly, for that. I will get you all copies of the report.
Are the icons going back, the little bicycle icons?
That brings up another question for me. Prado, I think of Prado as sort of like Cypress Grove and Pelican Preserve Boulevard,
Yes.
that it would have that dedicated lane, and there isn't one marked there. Is there room on Prado Boulevard to put in a lane?
I don't know, and they did not look at that very frankly. But
I don't think it's nearly as wide, but I don't know, it's just gut feeling.
no.
The right-hand side looks a little tiny bit wider than the left-hand lane, but it doesn't look 4 feet wider. So I don't know, I mean, if they're 12 foot, they could always do a 10 and 10 and a 4.
Ford is good for bikes,
Yeah, because, I mean, going back
Nancy,
to.
we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, going back to the original documents, it said all the communities had to be connected.
Right.
That would include that neighborhood too.
Mhm. Yep.
You know, if you think about the Pelican Reserve Golf Course Town Center intersection, roundabout, really,
Makes sense,
kinda
doesn't
makes
it?
sense to me.
But a roundabout does make sense, but the problem is now
cost.
putting a roundabout in, you're talking about
Cost.
big bucks.
Well, but I'm sure if you asked Lenore, they'd jump on it for us. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
Phil, I have a question.
Sure.
And let's assume that they did make the golf cart lane, the bicycle lane 6 feet for golf carts. How do golf carts make a left turn? They still have to get in the traffic lane.
Well, exactly.
They're not correct.
Yeah, John, the problem that the work group has with it is that, you know, making it a 6-foot lane doesn't eliminate some of the safety problems.
Oh, it hurts. I mean, you would have more of a problem with bicycles and golf carts in the same lane.
Yeah, well, we recognize that, and that was the reason that long ago, you may remember it, going back a year and a half or 2 years ago, we proposed that the that the 4-foot lane be exclusively for bicycles and that the golf carts travel in the regular traffic lane. And I think that's where we're gonna be back to, but now at least we have a traffic study, which was what.
Very good.
Was what the board said we had to have before we made any recommendations, and so now that's where we are.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but I.
Like that.
Yeah, I think you would find that the work group is unanimously agrees with you on that point. Any other questions on the safety and security work group? We will get copies of the report to you. I apologize, we didn't get enough of them, but
Can you
they
do
are
it
sending them to
electronic?
us.
Can you do it electronically?
We can do it electronically.
Might be a
Yep,
lot easier.
yes, I
I
would
would
try and do it
prefer that.
electronically.
I
Yep.
get enough
Me
paper
too.
floating
Less
around.
paper.
Yep, yeah, there's a, we can go to, have that. Gateway meeting attendance schedule. So, for the next meeting, which is the 17th.
I have down and
Bob-
I'm coming.
Bob is coming to that one. And you're going to it anyway, right?
Yes.
I may attend as well. The meeting after that would be the, what, 1st of September?
September 7th.
7th.
Somebody's already signed up
September
for that
7th.
one.
Yeah. have we-
Yeah, I got us signed up for that too.
Okay,
Didn't know I wanted all these. I'll give up that one.
okay.
I got the 21st.
And you got the 21st, okay. I think
Someone
that-
else wants September 7th?
I can't do September 7th.
All right, I'll do it.
You'll do it? Where, what would, Ron, you've got it there, I don't, what would the October dates be?
Oh, October would be the 5th and the 19th.
5th and the 19th. Do you have anybody?
I'll volunteer for the 19th.
19th,
I'll
John?
definitely back.
Okay. Anybody for the 5th? I'll take the 5th.
Oh, I was gonna say Jan. Jan, she's not.
Jen's not here. We can give it to her.
Okay. All right, committee member requests and audience comments. Anybody in the audience, a comment? Come forward, please.
Got
if
a
you-
card, Joe Schofield, like to address concerning signs and conveyance.
Time is short, I'll get to the point.
Joe, would you introduce, you put your, so you're on the record, just say
Oh,
who
Joe
you are.
Schofield, Carina. I just want to talk about track L conveyance. I know there's a lot of pictures. I have more pictures than Jan has. Obviously, we can't look at them all, but I know every crack in Carina and every crack on Matarita Drive. I've walked them all. And I just, again, strongly suggest we don't accept anything until they're fixed. I've walked that Casilla area, and again, that's just loaded with problems. And I would suggest until the last building is done, we don't accept anything there. Also, I'd like to request you consider putting signs up for no construction vehicles or trucks on Julia and also on the second, what I call second entrance, the Carina Circle. It's right there at that Casilla Circle. We have a sign at the first entrance for Julia, or for Carina, but the trucks really are coming down from the construction site, missing the whole turn and going down through that whole community. So I would request that you consider doing that. Next, pardon me?
So where do you want them, Joe?
There's the circle there on Pelican Preserve, I'm sorry, on Cypress Grove Boulevard and Carina.
That traffic circle.
And then there'd be a good idea to put one there on Julia because that's straddled between the two Carina circles.
And I guess they're just going down there by accident, because there's no reason for anything to
Oh,
go
I
down there.
agree, I agree,
Right?
but they
That's all
still
they're-
come around and sometimes they turn on Vitale, sometimes they go around and it's just a suggestion I would like to make. The other thing I'd like to talk about are the signs. You folks follow more of a format. I'm an independent person and I don't have to. I've written a letter to WCI or Lennar. I've sent it to all of their top executives, and I've suggested we thank them for the signs being taken down, request they reconsider the possibility, as their lawyer has recommended, that they'll put them up elsewhere. I've suggested other alternatives. I've told them the drive down Cypress Grove Boulevard or Drive is horrible. Certainly leaves a horrible impression on anybody that might see signs they're trying to use to sell the community, and I've put pictures to it, which shows what that drive looks like. And I'm gonna give you a copy of this, Phil, just for your records. But I sent this to Mr. Stuart Miller, who is their Chief Executive Officer. Doubt that he'll look at it, but he may pass it down. But I also sent it to their Marketing Director, their Information Director, and their President. And I've explained what the issues are and the fact that they aren't gaining anything putting signs elsewhere. I've also showed them pictures of the signs blowing out of the ground almost from every thunderstorm that comes through. The last issue I have is capital reserve study. And I would just say, Ron, to please be careful what you look at, how you do it. I'm not sure how you define how you define what the fund, or how that fund gets established. Is it just the board that votes on that and decides it? Does it come to the community for voting? We had a capital reserve fund in Carina that was brought up for a vote, which was required by our HOA and was drastically defeated. It was a disaster, with arguments, police having to be called into the community for some folks that had different viewpoints on it. So I would say, please step carefully on that, and that's it.
Joe,
Thank
that-
you.
Just for your information, that is, there's already a capital reserve fund that has
About $1 million.
about $900,000 in it. I
Well,
believe.
after this year, I think we'll have $1 million too.
Yeah, and the contributions to that capital reserve fund are voted on by this committee
Mhm.
and approved by the board.
Okay, so it doesn't
That's
come
the
to
way-
the community at all, okay. I just request you be careful with that, because it was a disastrous issue in our community.
Mhm.
And Ron, I'll give you this, and all of you can look at these pictures. We're talking about pictures of what this community looks like. These are pretty descriptive. That's just going down Cypress
Cypress
Grove
Grove.
Boulevard.
It's a mess.
And I have
All that
hundreds of them.
landscaping issues.
That's just.
Oh, it's a mess down
Yeah.
there, yeah. And they have to take all the people that they wanted to look at new home sites
They have to take
down
the
there,
risk.
and I can't understand why they don't want that to look pristine. You know,
Sure.
when they take all their prospective customers
Yeah.
down there.
The one thing I mentioned in that letter was also the roads that they would need to take from the construction entrance down to Casilla. All those roads are beat up and will continue to be beat up as long as tractor trailer and construction
Yeah.
trucks are coming down and going around the
Yeah,
circle.
and I think
So again, that
that's
should be
an issue.
excluded from
That's a-
track L.
that-
You mentioned that wonderfully,
that-
Ron.
That's an issue. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, any other, Chris, do we have any other people who want to make comments? Committee member requests? Bob?
I have one report that I forgot to give when I was
Yeah.
giving my report. We had engaged Morris Riley some months ago to reinspect 30%, randomly reinspect 30% of the community from what we did in 2011. And I received their report on July the 26th. It's a 3-page report, and I'm happy to say, everything they inspected, we had a total of 4 pipes that were close to the 30% or greater than 30%. Everything else was well within our normal tolerances for cleaning. So it's very good news.
So
We're
this
not
was,
getting worse.
this was the pipes that they.
These are the pipes and the catch basins
Mhm.
of all of Old Pelican.
Mhm.
They just randomly did 30% of what they did in 2011. And they appear to be holding up very, very well. So that's,
So 30% and more blockage is considered not
that's what
good.
we have just arbitrarily said
Yep.
we need to do something with.
Mhm.
So, because of this good news, we'll be very limited in what we do in cleaning.
Mhm.
We have $100,000 a year cleaning budget. When you're spending $15,000 a week to do it, you don't really want to do too many.
Mhm.
So, we just got the report. We'll be taking it to the work group meeting, and then we'll put our path forward. But fundamentally, it's good news.
Good.
When we first did it in 2011, we probably had about 60% blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really good news for us.
Mhm. Good, good. Anything else? Okay, the next meeting will be the 14th of September. I will not be here, so Bob, I would ask that.
No, I got it.
I will-
Long meeting, huh, Bob?
we'll be done in an hour.
Ooh, I'll write that down, make sure that's in the minutes.
That's right. I
We
will-
won't be worried about these financial and other things. We'll talk about ponds and dismiss.
I will try and call in.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
Can't get it done in an hour, I've tried.
It's tough.
Motion to adjourn.
I so motion.
Second.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.